Hi there, we're from Group 3 of BC 101E, and today we're going to talk about Tutorial 3, which is the online security and payment in e-commerce. So, without wasting any time, let's begin. When you do an e-commerce, crime is not an exception. In fact, nowadays it is much easier for you to commit a crime because all you need to do is have a computer and an internet connection, and voila, anything is possible. So like I said, crime is not an exception in e-commerce. So after going through some brainstorming session, we found out that these are three most common crime in e-commerce. First is fraud, and then we have personal intrusion in customer data, or in simple word, call it as theft. And lastly is about the disruption of services. Don't worry, I will go through one by one about these main points. Alright, let's begin with fraud. So basically everyone knows what fraud is, but what is fraud in the context of e-commerce? So fraud in the context of e-commerce would be fraudulent purchases, whereby a buyer refuses to pay for the goods sent or use a stolen credit card account to make a purchase illegally. So I'm going to talk more about a credit card. Alright, stealing a credit card today than it was 10 years ago is slightly more difficult, but it is not possible because over the course of 10 years, even though they have improved their security system by introducing more and more verification steps, but one problem, one biggest flaw with e-commerce is it's a system. What is it with a system? A system or a computer, they cannot identify whether you are the actual owner of the credit card or not. Anyone can type the credit card numbers, including the 3 digits behind the card. But what if someone who stole the credit card actually knows your confidential information? You're in big trouble because the new security system requires you to enter some of your confidential information for verification purposes. But like I said, what if that person who stole your credit card knows your information? Well, you're in big trouble then. Next is the personal intrusion in customer data, or in other words, employee information theft. Employee information theft is about an employee who works with an e-commerce company. They actually abuse their position by violating the trust that the company have in them by misusing valuable company information. So actually those valuable company informations are our personal information and maybe some company secrets. For a right sum amount of money, they are willing to pull the strings, and in the end, those who are unfortunate suffers from this abuse of trust, and those who are unfortunate are actually us. So this is another serious issue in e-commerce, and this is a very serious crime. Lastly, disruption of services. The word itself is pretty much self-explanatory, so I'm just going to jump into the examples, such as power failures, DDoS attacks, or in other words, denial of services, and equipment failures. Rarely do power failures and equipment failures lead to disruptions, and most disruption occurs because of DDoS attacks, whereby the denial of services causes the server to crash. So when the server crashes, no one can use the e-commerce services, so it will create an inconvenience among customers because they can't use the services. To sum things up, there are a lot of possible crimes in e-commerce. So to the company who plans to venture or invest in an e-commerce system, you have to seriously consider all these crimes. And do not forget, even if you have a top-notch security system, sometimes the people that we trust the most, they can easily abuse that trust. So as long as you can find a way to counter all the threats and solve the trust issue, then why not go for e-commerce? Because e-commerce is the future of business. It would be a waste if you do not take advantage of the e-commerce system. And therefore, if you can find a way to balance between the pros and cons, then yeah, you should invest in an e-commerce system. So that is all for me for the possible crimes in e-commerce. So thank you very much.
So basically, what is mobile commerce crime is any business transaction which is initiated by using a mobile device such as mobile phone. Okay, it is like the buying and selling of goods and services through a wireless handheld device such as handphones or personal digital assistant like PDAs and iPads and extra. So let's talk about cybercrimes. Cybercrimes has been around since there was a cyber world to be abused, with criminals stealing information, money, and identities, shutting down business and compromising security all over the world. As more and more of us have taken to use our mobile phones for browsing in the web, banking, and shopping, the risk of cybercrimes grows even ever larger and mobile devices, which criminals are increasingly eyeing as a promising new source of revenue. Alright, although mobile phones, viruses, and trojans have been around since at least 2004, as mobile phone evolved into powerful handheld computers, the threat posed by mobile malware is vastly increased in severity. Since early 2006, it has been possible to remotely activate a mobile phone's microphone, transforming the phone into an omnipresent eavesdropping device. As mobile phones add more features, including cameras, Bluetooth connectivity, and GPS function, they will become even more powerful tools for criminals to reach out and discover unsuspecting victims. Mobile commerce crimes. They are altogether seven crimes, which is rootkit, QR codes, digital certificate theft, smishing, crimeware, encrypting, hacking, social engineering. So let's move on to rootkit. Alright, a rootkit is a particularly stealthy type of software that installs its on a user's device and hides itself from the normal mode of detection, letting it operate in a secret to get privileged access to a computer and its users' information. For example, when a person thought they were phoning Citibank, phoning meaning online banking, might find their call had in fact been rerouted to an international organized crime group instead. By the end of the conversation, the criminal would have access to the victim's personal and banking details and could use them to remove all the funds from one account to another. Now we move on to QR codes. It's another m-commerce crime. Is in fact the mobile with viruses through QR codes. Now QR codes can be a very cool way for consumers to find out more about products and find a wealth of information with a little effort, but they are not always safe. Now mobile phones users never quite know where the codes will be taken once scanned, and in a growing number of cases, QR codes leading to sites that download a virus or malware onto users' mobile devices. So, mobile security aspects already seeing rash of the QR codes problems and expect them to grow significantly in the number of over the next year. We move on with digital certificate theft. They are what verify that user sending information is who she or he claims to be. Now, the culprit will be having access to ability to pretend to be you could be a pretty serious security risk. While that risk is already exist when you use a PC increasingly becoming a concern for mobile users as well, and was identified by AVG Technologies as being one of the most pressing issues in mobile security. So then we move on to smishing. Smishing is a trick individual to revealing personal and private information. Smishers send their victims an SMS text message baiting them into devolving personal details like bank account, credit cards, or social security numbers. And smishers often pose as businesses, drawing in those who believe they are simply helping keep their accounts in good standing, avoiding bogus charges. The smishers say that they will owe if they don't comply, or sometimes even trying to win a fake prize. Now, sometimes smishers aim to collect personal information directly, and other times they are trying to install a malware that can allow phone to be controlled remotely. Crimeware, it's another type of m-commerce. So crimeware is an app store, it's an application store, open up a wealth of opportunities for criminals to fill one's mobile device with crimeware. Now, one of would willingly download a program onto their smartphone that would cause them to be a victim of fraud, but crimeware is distinguished as being a different type of program altogether, perhaps a game or a usual utility. In fact, the app may actually run in that fashion. The problem is, however, that it comes along with a tag along malware or other tracking devices that lets criminals access information, control the phone, and range of the other malicious activities. Move on to encryption hacking. For sophisticated cyber criminals, encryption may not be a roadblock to stealing one's personal information, your money, or your identity. It's becoming increasingly easy for criminals to crack the most common types of encryption, and with many government blocking the use of high level encryption technologies, like so they can break the codes if necessary for law enforcement purposes. So we move on to the next type of m-commerce, which is social engineering. Social engineers scam mobile users by either tricking them into giving them private information, or by tricking companies that the individual uses. Sometimes criminals will hack into bank accounts and change the customer contact information. When the fraud occurs, the bank will contact not the customer but the criminal, who will verify the charges as pesky confirmers. So, social engineers occur in such a wide variety of ways that is hard to fight. So, consumers will just need to be on their toes and watch out for any unusual activities to avoid becoming a victim. We can check on the examples of using of credit cards. Like we swipe the credit card once, and then the bank will send the user a text message that the card has been used. So we have to update our bank account details and confirm that our phone numbers and address it's wisely our real information. Thank you.